I never believed that a place could follow you. People leave houses, cities, even countries, thinking distance is enough to bury whatever happened there. I used to believe that too, until I learned some things don't stay where you left them. 2 years ago, after my father died, I moved into the cheapest apartment I could find. Apartment 3A. The building was old, the kind where the lights in the hallway flicker even when no one is touching the switch. The landlord avoided eye contact when he handed me the keys. I assumed he was just tired or unfriendly. The first night felt wrong in a way I couldn't explain. Not scary, just empty, like the building wasn't meant to hold people anymore. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, listening to the silence pressing against my ears. At exactly 2:17 a.m., 3 knocks echoed from the wall behind my bed. I sat up instantly. I remember holding my breath, waiting for some normal explanation, pipes, neighbors, anything. But the building was silent again. I convinced myself I imagined it. Then it came again. 3 slow knocks, deliberate, patient. I pressed my ear to the wall before fear could stop me. For a moment, there was nothing. Then I heard breathing. I stumbled back, heart hammering so hard it made my chest hurt. There was an apartment on the other side, 3B. I had passed its door earlier. I assumed someone lived there. The next morning, I knocked on 3B's door. No answer. I knocked harder. Still nothing. That's when I noticed the dust on the handle. Thick, undisturbed, like no one had touched it in months. When I asked the landlord, he said it was used for storage. His voice sounded rehearsed, like he had said those words many times before. That night, 2:17 a.m., 3 knocks again. This time, something inside me snapped. Maybe it was exhaustion, maybe anger at being scared in my own home. I knocked back 3 times. The response was instant. Violent pounding exploded from the other side of the wall, frantic and desperate, like someone trapped in a coffin. The wall shook under the force of it. I stumbled away, convinced it would break open. Then it stopped, and in the silence, I heard a whisper. My voice. Please don't leave me here. I didn't sleep at all that night. The next day, the landlord finally told me the truth. A man had lived in 3B years ago. Quiet, isolated. One day, neighbors complained about a smell, but when the door was opened, the apartment was empty. No signs of moving, no struggle, nothing missing, except the man himself. Police found deep scratches carved into the wall between our apartments. Long gouges, like someone had tried to claw their way through. I moved out that same day. For weeks, nothing happened. I started to believe distance had saved me. Until one night, in my new apartment across the city, I woke up at exactly 2:17 a.m. to knocking, not on a wall, on my bedroom door. I lived alone. The knocking came again, louder this time, vibrating through the wood. Then my voice whispered from the other side, "Please, you have to let me out." The doorknob rattled slowly, as if someone was testing whether it was locked. I couldn't move, couldn't speak. I just stared at the door, waiting for it to burst open. But it never did. When morning came, I opened the door to an empty hallway. On the floor, carved into the wood, were 3 deep scratches. I moved again after that. New city, new job, new life. I refused to think about what happened. Until last winter, when work brought me back to that same city. The old building was only a few streets from my hotel. I told myself I wouldn't go there, but I did. The hallway looked unchanged, frozen in time. Apartment 3A had a new tenant. Apartment 3B was still locked, dust covering the handle. As I stood there, the tenant of 3A opened his door and asked if I needed something. I asked if he ever heard knocking at night. His face lost all color. Before he could answer, 3 slow knocks came from inside 3B. He whispered, barely audible, "It talks to me too." I left without another word. I thought that was the end. But last night, I woke up at 2:17 a.m. again. My room was silent. No knocking, no movement. For a moment, I felt relief. Then I felt breath against my ear. Warm, slow, and a whisper in my own voice. I found you. I don't sleep much anymore, because I'm afraid one night I'll wake up somewhere else, in a dark room, behind a wall with no way out. Knocking, waiting for someone to answer, and realizing I've become the thing on the other side. I don't drive on the motorway at night anymore. Everyone assumes it's because I'm scared after the accident. That's the version I let people believe, because the real reason sounds like something a disturbed person would say. But I know what I experienced, and I know it wasn't normal. 2 years ago, I was driving back to Faisalabad from Lahore after a late meeting. I entered the motorway a little after midnight. If you've ever been on a motorway that late, you know how it feels, like the world has ended and you're the last person left alive. No shops, no pedestrians, no lights except the endless white lines vanishing under your headlights. At first it was peaceful. The hum of the engine, the empty road stretching ahead forever. I turned on a radio just to fill the silence, but all I got was static. It didn't bother me. I just kept driving. About an hour in, I noticed headlights behind me. Far back at first, then closer. I assumed it was just another car speeding, so I moved to the slow lane to let it pass. But it didn't. It stayed behind me at the exact same distance, matching my speed perfectly. I sped up slightly. So did it. I slowed down. It slowed too. A cold feeling crept into my stomach. Maybe it was just coincidence, I told myself. Maybe the driver was distracted. Then the car flashed its headlights once. Not aggressively, just a quick signal. I checked my mirrors again. It was a white sedan, old model, nothing unusual. Trying to calm myself, I assumed they wanted to pass. I shifted lanes. The car stayed behind me. Another flash. I started to feel watched. Not the normal kind of nervousness, something deeper, like an instinct telling you that you're not safe. The motorway stretched empty in front of me. No exit for miles. Then something even stranger happened. I looked at the dashboard clock. 2:17 a.m. I don't know why that time stuck in my head, but it did. When I looked back at the mirror, the car was gone. Just gone. No headlights. No sign of it anywhere. There was nowhere it could have turned off. The road was straight for kilometers. I laughed nervously, trying to shake it off. Maybe it had slowed down suddenly. Maybe I hadn't noticed. But my relief didn't last long. A few minutes later, I saw headlights ahead of me, facing my direction, on my side of the motorway. My heart jumped into my throat. For a split second, I thought it was a car driving the wrong way. I flashed my lights repeatedly, panicking. But the car didn't move. As I got closer, I realized it was parked on the shoulder. The same white sedan. I slowed down without meaning to. Something about it felt wrong. The engine was off, headlights on, driver's door slightly open. And standing beside the car was a man. He didn't wave, didn't signal for help. He just stood there facing the road, completely still. Every instinct told me not to stop. Stories of motorway robberies flashed through my mind. I kept driving, eyes locked ahead, trying not to look. But as I passed him, I glanced in the side mirror. He was staring directly at me. Not my car, at me. I drove faster after that, my hands shaking on the wheel. I kept checking the mirror, half expecting the sedan to be behind me again. It wasn't. After another 15 minutes, I started calming down. I told myself it was just a stranded driver, nothing more. Then my radio crackled. Through the static, a voice came through. My voice. Stop the car. I froze. The sound was distorted, broken, but unmistakably mine. Stop the car. It repeated louder. I switched off the radio immediately. My chest felt tight, like the air inside the car had turned heavy. That's when I noticed the fuel gauge. Empty. It had been half full earlier. I was sure of it. Panic surged through me. Running out of fuel on the motorway at night was dangerous even under normal circumstances. The engine began to sputter. I pulled onto the shoulder as the car died completely. Darkness swallowed everything except my dim headlights. Silence. Thick, suffocating silence. Then I saw movement in the rearview mirror. Someone sitting in the back seat. I whipped around. Nothing. My breath came out in shaky bursts. I told myself I was hallucinating, that stress and exhaustion were messing with my head. A knock sounded on the driver's window. I turned slowly. The man from the white sedan stood beside my car. I hadn't heard footsteps, hadn't seen headlights. He was just there. Up close, something about him looked wrong. His face was pale, almost gray, his eyes unfocused like he wasn't fully present. He leaned closer to the glass and spoke, but I didn't hear his voice from outside. I heard it inside the car, inside my head. You left me here. I couldn't move. You saw me, and you kept driving. His hand pressed against the window. Long scratches covered his fingers, like he'd been clawing at something. I shut my eyes, praying it would stop. When I opened them, he was gone. The motorway was empty again. My engine suddenly roared back to life on its own. The fuel gauge showed half full. I didn't question it. I just drove. I reached home before sunrise and convinced myself it had all been a nightmare brought on by exhaustion. Until the next morning. My car was covered in dust from the night drive, except for one spot on the driver's window. 5 long scratch marks. From the outside, I sold the car a week later. I avoid motorways at night now, no matter how long the alternate route takes. Because sometimes, when I wake up in the middle of the night, I hear a faint sound coming from outside my bedroom window. A slow, deliberate knock, and a voice that sounds exactly like mine, whispering, "You can't drive away forever." I used to work the night shift as a security guard at a private hospital on the edge of a city. It wasn't a big hospital, just 4 floors, most of the lights turned off after midnight to save electricity. My job was simple: walk the corridors, check the emergency exits, make sure no one unauthorized entered. Boring, quiet, predictable. At least that's what I thought when I took the job. The first few nights were uneventful. The only sounds were the distant beeping of machines and the hum of the air conditioning. Sometimes a patient would cry out in their sleep, or a nurse would rush past with tired eyes. Nothing unusual for a hospital. But on my 6th night, something happened that I still can't explain. At exactly 2 a.m., the lights in the East Wing flickered and went out. Power outages weren't uncommon, so I grabbed my flashlight and headed that way. The East Wing was mostly empty, old rooms used for storage now. As I walked down the corridor, my footsteps echoed louder than they should have, like the hallway was stretching longer with every step. Halfway down, I heard a door creak open behind me. I turned. Every door was closed. I stood there listening, telling myself it was just the building settling. Then I heard it again, a soft, dragging sound like something heavy being pulled across the floor. "Hello," I called out, trying to sound confident. No answer. I followed the sound until I reached the last room at the end of the corridor. Room E17. The door was slightly open, even though I was sure it had been closed during my earlier round. I pushed it open slowly. The room was empty except for an old hospital bed and a chair in the corner. Dust covered everything. No windows, no movement, nothing that could have made that sound. I was about to leave when I noticed the bed. The sheet was indented, like someone had just been lying there. A cold wave of unease washed over me. I stepped closer, shining my flashlight on it. The indentation slowly sank deeper, as if something invisible was still there, pressing down. I backed away, my heart pounding. Then I heard breathing. right beside me. I spun around. No one. The breathing continued for a few seconds, then stopped abruptly. I left that room and didn't go back for the rest of the night. The next morning, I asked one of the older nurses about room E17. She looked at me strangely before saying it had been closed for years. A patient had died there during surgery complications. Nothing unusual. People die in hospitals all the time. But then she added something quietly. The patient kept saying someone was in the room with him, even when he was alone. I laughed it off, pretending it didn't bother me. The following night, I avoided the East Wing completely. I stayed near the reception area, watching cameras, drinking tea to stay awake. At 2 a.m., every monitor showing the East Wing went to static. One by one, I stared at the screens, waiting for them to come back. Instead, one monitor flickered on again. Room E17. The camera showed the empty bed. Then the mattress slowly dipped, like someone sitting down. I felt my throat tighten. I told myself it was a glitch, a malfunction. Then the camera moved. Not the image, the camera itself, tilting downward as if someone had grabbed it. And for a split second, the screen filled with a face. Pale, expressionless, eyes wide open, looking directly into the lens. The feed cut to black. I quit that job the next day. Told them I found something better, that nights weren't for me. Months passed. I tried to forget it. Until one evening, while cleaning my apartment, I found something in my jacket pocket, the one I used during night shifts. A hospital wristband. Old, yellowed, fragile. I didn't remember taking it. My hand started shaking as I read the name printed on it. It was mine. My name, my age, my blood type, dated 3 years before I ever worked there. I called the hospital immediately, my voice barely steady, and asked if I had ever been admitted as a patient. There was a long pause. Then the receptionist said yes. 3 years earlier, after a car accident, I had been in a coma for 2 weeks. Room E17. I don't remember the accident. I don't remember being there. My family said I recovered quickly, that it was a miracle. But now sometimes when I wake up in the middle of the night, I hear the slow beeping of a heart monitor in my room. And I can't move. I try to scream, but my body won't respond. I just lie there, staring at the ceiling, convinced that if I turn my head slightly, I'll see someone sitting beside my bed in the dark, watching me, waiting, like I once watched that bed in room E17. Sometimes I wonder if I ever really left that hospital at all, or if part of me is still there, lying in that room, eyes open, unable to move, waiting for the night guard to walk in and realize the patient was never alone. I never told anyone this story completely. Whenever I tried, people would interrupt with logical explanations, stress, sleepwalking, trauma. Maybe they're right. Maybe my mind created everything to protect itself. But there's one detail I can't explain. 3 years ago, I moved into a small rented house after my divorce. It was cheap, quiet, and far from the crowded parts of the city. I wanted isolation. I thought being alone would help me heal. For the first few weeks, it did. The house had a strange layout, a narrow hallway connecting the bedroom, kitchen, and living room. At the end of the hallway was a small storage room with a wooden door that didn't quite close properly. The landlord told me not to worry about it, said the lock was broken and there was nothing inside anyway. I kept that door shut. At night, the house made sounds the way all old houses do, with creaking, pipes ticking, wind pressing against the windows. I got used to it quickly. Then one night, around 1:30 a.m., I woke up needing water. As I stepped into the hallway, I noticed the storage room door was open, just a few inches. I was certain I had closed it earlier. I stood there staring at the gap, waiting for some movement inside, but the darkness was too thick to see anything. I told myself it was the broken latch. I pushed the door closed and went back to bed. The next morning, it was open again, this time wider. I checked inside. The room was empty except for dust and a single light bulb hanging from the ceiling. No windows, no furniture, nothing that could have moved the door. I started wedging a chair against it before sleeping. A few nights later, I woke up to the sound of wood scraping across the floor. The chair was being dragged. My entire body went cold. I sat frozen in bed, listening as the scraping stopped and the door slowly creaked open. I waited for footsteps. None came. When I finally forced myself to check, the hallway was empty. The chair lay on its side, several feet away from the door, as if it had been thrown. I stopped sleeping properly after that. Every night felt tense, like something was waiting for me to lose focus. Then the dream started. I kept dreaming about the storage room. In the dreams, I would stand in the doorway while something inside breathed slowly in the dark. I never saw it, but I knew it was aware of me. One night, I woke up from that dream unable to move. Sleep paralysis. I had experienced it once before as a teenager, so I tried to stay calm. My eyes were open, fixed on the bedroom doorway. And in the hallway, I saw someone standing there. A man-shaped shadow, darker than the darkness around it, watching me. I tried to scream, but couldn't. Tears ran down my temples as I lay there, trapped inside my own body. The figure didn't move closer. It just stood there until I finally drifted back into unconsciousness. In the morning, I convinced myself it was a hallucination, until I noticed something on the floor near my bed. Footprints. Dusty footprints leading from the hallway to my bedside, and stopping there. No return prints. I packed a bag that same day and stayed with a friend for a week. When I returned with him to collect the rest of my things, the house looked normal. Empty. Harmless. He laughed when I told him why I left, until he opened the storage room. The light bulb was gone. Not broken. Unscrewed and missing. We searched the house, but never found it. I moved out permanently after that. Months passed, and slowly the fear faded into something distant, like a bad memory losing its edges. Then last winter, I received a call from the landlord. He asked if I had left anything behind in the storage room. I told him no. There was a long silence before he said they found something during renovations. A mattress. Thin, dirty, hidden behind the wall panels. When I finally forced myself to check, the hallway was empty. The chair lay on its side, several feet away from the door, as if it had been thrown. I stopped sleeping properly after that. Every night felt tense, like something was waiting for me to lose focus. Then the dream started. I kept dreaming about the storage room. In the dreams, I would stand in the doorway while something inside breathed slowly in the dark. I never saw it, but I knew it was aware of me. One night, I woke up from that dream unable to move. Sleep paralysis. I had experienced it once before as a teenager, so I tried to stay calm. My eyes were open, fixed on the bedroom doorway. And in the hallway, I saw someone standing there. A man-shaped shadow, darker than the darkness around it, watching me. I tried to scream, but couldn't. Tears ran down my temples as I lay there, trapped inside my own body. The figure didn't move closer. It just stood there until I finally drifted back into unconsciousness. In the morning, I convinced myself it was a hallucination, until I noticed something on the floor near my bed. Footprints. Dusty footprints leading from the hallway to my bedside, and stopping there. No return prints. I packed a bag that same day and stayed with a friend for a week. When I returned with him to collect the rest of my things, the house looked normal. Empty. Harmless. He laughed when I told him why I left, until he opened the storage room. The light bulb was gone. Not broken. Unscrewed and missing. We searched the house, but never found it. I moved out permanently after that. Months passed, and slowly the fear faded into something distant, like a bad memory losing its edges. Then last winter, I received a call from the landlord. He asked if I had left anything behind in the storage room. I told him no. There was a long silence before he said they found something during renovations. A mattress. Thin, dirty, hidden behind the wall panels. I used to think the scariest thing about living alone was the silence. No voices, no footsteps, no one to tell you that the strange noise you heard was nothing. Just you and your thoughts. Now I know silence isn't the scary part. It's when the silence answers back. 4 years ago, I rented a small upper portion of a house in a quiet neighborhood. The family downstairs was polite but distant, the kind of neighbors who nod but never talk. I worked from home as a graphic designer, so most days I barely left the house. At first, I enjoyed the solitude. Then I started hearing footsteps, not downstairs, on my ceiling. Slow, deliberate pacing back and forth like someone walking in circles. The problem was, there was no floor above me, just a roof. The first time it happened, I assumed it was a cat or maybe birds. Old houses carry sound in strange ways. But the footsteps were too heavy, too steady to be an animal. That night, I went downstairs and asked the family if someone had been on the roof. They looked confused. The father said no one had gone up there in weeks. I laughed it off, embarrassed. But the footsteps kept happening. Always late at night. Always the same pattern. 10 steps one direction, pause, 10 steps back. Eventually, curiosity overpowered fear. One evening before sunset, I climbed the narrow staircase leading to the roof. It was empty. Dust covered the floor in a thin, undisturbed layer. No footprints. No sign that anyone had been there at all. I told myself that should have comforted me. It didn't. A few nights later, I woke up to the sound again. But this time, it wasn't above me. It was outside my bedroom door. Step. Pause. Step. My throat tightened. I lived alone upstairs. There was no one else who could be there. I grabbed my phone, hands shaking, and called the neighbor downstairs. The call rang and rang before he answered, his voice thick with sleep. I whispered, asking if anyone had come upstairs. He said no. Then he asked why. I couldn't answer because at that moment, the footsteps stopped directly outside my door. Something brushed lightly against the wood, like fingertips tracing the surface. I stared at the handle, waiting for it to turn. It didn't. After a long minute, the steps moved away, fading down the hallway. I didn't open the door until morning. Nothing was there. No sign anyone had been in the house. I started sleeping with the lights on after that. Weeks passed with no incidents, and I began to relax again. I even convinced myself I had imagined it, that isolation was playing tricks on my mind. Then one night, while working late at my desk, I heard a faint tapping sound behind me. 3 taps. I turned. My bedroom window. Someone was tapping from the outside. My room was on the 2nd floor. My heart pounded as I slowly approached the window. I told myself it had to be a branch or something hitting the glass. But there were no trees close enough. The tapping came again. 3 slow taps. I pulled the curtain aside. Nothing. Just darkness. As I stood there, trying to steady my breathing, I noticed my reflection in the glass. Except it wasn't moving exactly with me. My reflection's head tilted slightly a second after mine. I stumbled back, my mind refusing to process what I was seeing. When I looked again, it was normal, perfectly synced. I closed the curtains and didn't sleep at all that night. The next morning, I noticed something on the outside of the window. Handprints. From the outside, as if someone had pressed both hands against the glass and leaned in to look. I called the landlord that day and told him I was moving out. I didn't explain why. I just needed to leave. While packing, I found something wedged behind my wardrobe. A small photograph. Old, faded at the edges. It showed my room. The same layout, same window, same door. But the furniture was different. And sitting on the bed was a man I had never seen before. He was staring directly at the camera with a blank expression. On the back of the photo, written in shaky handwriting, were the words, "He doesn't like being alone. I left everything else behind and moved that same day. I live in a busy apartment building now, surrounded by noise, traffic, people. It helps, most of the time. But sometimes, late at night, when everything suddenly goes quiet, I hear footsteps outside my door. 10 steps. Pause. 10 steps back. And every time I look through the peephole, the hallway is empty. Except once. Once I saw something standing just out of view, close enough that all I could see was part of shoulder and a hand slowly resting against my door. I didn't open it. I don't think I ever will. Because deep down, I'm afraid it's not trying to get in. It's waiting for me to come out. So it won't be alone anymore.